Hello, everybody, and welcome to Transformation Tuesday. We're about to go live. It's 8 o'clock. Hope you guys are hearing me okay. I think we are good with the mic check. Um, Hopefully, the stream is also working well so that we can have a good coaching call here tonight. Seems like it's a little sluggish. If you get on the call and you can hear me okay, just give me a hello or a thumbs up just so that I know everything's working well. And if you have any questions during this coaching call, just please put them in the comments, and I'll be keeping a lookout in the comments and trying to address them while while we're on the webinar. I'm only going to take about 20 or 30 minutes, which is usually what we do on Transformation Tuesday. I see there's a couple people on live. Just again, if you're hearing everything okay, just give me a hello or a thumbs up, and we're going to continue. I appreciate you being here on time, and because of that, we're going to start right away. Again, if you do have any questions, just put them in the comments section. My name is John Garcia. I'm a certified health coach for UpLevel Living. I work with two different doctors' offices here in South Florida in Boca Raton. I'm the resident health coach, and so I work directly, with the patients, and we're working on lifestyle change, habit change, and what we're talking about tonight is emotional eating during COVID-19 pandemic. So, I have a lot of good notes here tonight, and I picked up on this topic because there's a company. It's called Precision Nutrition, right? And they have 100,000 clients, or over 100,000 clients. So they've been really getting a lot of feedback. This is not something that I invented by any means. And the number one diet challenge, the number one most difficult challenge, by 60 something percent of the people that were using this poll, cited emotional eating or stress eating as the number one thing. And I think it's because there's so many factors, right? There's so many things that fall under that. Anything can cause an emotional reaction, anything can cause stress. And so, we easily can use that, negatively, right? And or react negatively to it. It's just everywhere. It's pervasive. So now we're in the middle of a pandemic. If you're watching live, today is September the 22nd, right? We're 6, 7 months into this COVID thing, because it's a thing, because we still don't even know exactly what it is. And, it's not funny at all because some people have lost loved ones, but just social distancing and wearing masks and, working remotely, and kids going to school or not going to school, and, you know, doing things remotely. God bless you if you have young ones at home, because at least my kids are a little bit older. I could throw them in a room, and, I pretty much get an alert if they were late or missed a class or something like that. But if you got little ones, man, multiply. So we're multiplying stress, by 10x, right? I'm not telling you anything you guys don't know. But what I want to tell you tonight, I think is going to help you a lot, because I don't think it's something you're going to expect to hear. So I'm going to start with the four key takeaways for tonight. Again, I have some really good notes here. So at the end of this Transformation Tuesday, if you put your comment, or just email me, John at UpLevel Living, and I'll send you the link to the entire transcription. We will have the video on our page and on YouTube, so you could watch it again. But if you want the notes, don't worry about taking notes. I could send them to you. So there's four key takeaways. During this time of overwhelming stress, many people turn to food for comfort, right? The term comfort food is a real thing, and it makes us smile. Just thinking about it makes us happy, right? So, stress turns this response. There's a trigger, that's stress, and the response is eating comfort food. Emotional eating is really the big thing here. Emotional eating is not problematic coping strategy unless it's your only coping strategy. So we're going to talk a lot about that. So again, I want to stress it. It's not problematic unless it's the only thing you're doing to cope with the stress. If you have previously had an eating disorder, this is also a time, when people tend to relapse, right? And it's important now to expand your coping skills, and that's what we're going to end with today, is some other coping skills that you can integrate, incorporate, so that the only thing you're not only turning to food, to comfort you. So Again, unless you're 102 years old, you've never lived through a pandemic before. And we're all kind of learning this thing on the fly, from politicians and government, even the CDC. We don't, you know, we can't really say, this is what it is or this is how you do it. And so things change every day, and that creates a lot of stress. People have lost jobs, they've lost insurance. And more than anything, what we've lost is a sense of routine. Hello, Rochelle. Thank you for dropping in. Definitely appreciate it. So getting back to this, so we've lost this sense of routine, and then when it's disrupted like that, again, it's another stress trigger. But now a lot of people are home, and that disruption has us home in a lot of cases. And there's a refrigerator, and there's a full pantry, and sure, why not turn to something that's comforting, when you're dealing with this. So the easy access is there. It's the perfect storm, for emotional stress eating to kind of reach a new height. So no matter what your life was like before, we all have to agree it's been altered in fundamental ways. So I'm going to talk a minute bit. So just kind of setting the stage there with what we're dealing with, because avoiding those facts is not a good strategy. All right, pretending that okay, this is just a time of we have to deal with the reality of it. I want to talk a little bit more about it. So I'm just setting the stage that the stress levels, and I see it every day in my office. So many times I talk to people that are dieting well and exercising well, and they're a mess. They're gaining weight. They're not in a good place, and it's because they're so stressed out. And stress, we talk a lot about it in my class. The reason you get healthy, guys, the reason that your health improves with diet and exercise is because you're actually reducing stress on your body. Let me know, Rochelle, if the stream is okay. I see that it's kind of skippy, but I'm gonna keep on going. So emotional eating is not a clinical term, right? It's not a doctor's term. But we use the term emotional eating when you turn to food when you're not hungry, right? When you eat and you're not hungry, it's an emotional eating. And I'm going to kind of go over the things that you can, look for in your own life to see if it's identifying this problem of, is it emotional eating, or are you just occasionally, going to snacks a little more than you used to, right? So number one, you find that obsessive thoughts of food prevent you from doing other things. This is true for almost any behavior. Once that behavior stops keeping you from the normal activities, then it's something you need to monitor, something that you may be becoming addicted to, something that is taking over your life. And if it's negative, then you obviously want to interfere, right? So when it becomes obsessive and it's keeping you from other things, red flag. You're eating unusually large amounts of food in a short period of time, and you feel out of control when you're eating. All right, so you're skipping meals. Sometimes it's time to eat and you skip it. It's because you're just all over the place. When you're turning to food, physical things like actually throwing up can if you see that you're doing it more often, or you're using laxatives because you feel very backed up. And an interesting one is also exercising excessively. So exercise is a great coping mechanism, but when it's excessive, you're probably doing it to compensate for the food that you're eating, and so that's not good. Even though it's exercise, it's still not good because it's just excessive. So, if those are things that you're finding are happening in your life, maybe the emotional stress eating is getting to a higher level. And although we're going to talk about why this is not the worst thing, we still want to get it under control. All right. So if you have had some kind of problem in the past, an eating disorder, and you feel like you're relapsing into that eating disorder, if you use a therapist or if you use the nutritionist, I definitely, number one, would recommend you speak to them again and reach out to them, and that's perfectly okay. Most people, recovery is a process, and there's relapses, and it's part of recovery, right? So reach out to the professionals first if you use a professional, and if not, we're going to also talk about some other coping mechanisms. But know that it is common to relapse during these high stress level times. So, how do we conquer emotional eating? I want to get kind of right into it. The number one thing, which I think is pretty awesome, and it's acceptance. acceptance, and it's kind of, self-compassion. And I have some great notes here, but in my coaching, I teach people how to see themselves as their own best friend. So, instead of a way of thinking about yourself, right? So it's not like this opinion that you have about yourself. When you have self-compassion, it's a way of being or treating yourself, and it's similar to the conversation you would have with your best friend or with a family member, right? When they fail. What think about the conversation you would have with that person, right? You wouldn't be judgmental. You wouldn't say you stink. You wouldn't say I told you so. If you're a real good friend, hopefully, you're gonna say, you know what? We all mess up sometimes. You know what? It's okay. This emotional stress eating is not the time to use tough love. Okay, tough love has its place. My job as a coach is to support you and to stretch you, and you have to know when to do those things. When you have someone, or if yourself is dealing with emotional stress eating, it's time to support yourself. It's time to, sounds corny maybe to something. It's time to love yourself. It's time to not be so hard on yourself. Okay, it's not the time to tell yourself you stink and I told you so, and you're not gonna ever get your life together. This ain't the time for that. All right. So I really want you to understand that self compassion is because, again, turning to food during this time is not a bad thing. It actually does help reduce stress. It does help you cope. It's when you feel guilty. It's when you over exercise. It's when you're throwing up or using it's when you kind of that you building that cycle. That's why those things are, we identified them before. So to break the cycle is addressing that there is stress, addressing that there is a problem, and addressing that you're totally normal for turning to food. Okay, and again, it's not bad if it's not the only thing that you're turning to. So you want to be kind to yourself. You want to be mindful. So kindness, mindful, aware of the situation. It says here, like, people want to avoid the pain and go right to the problem solving. But when you avoid the pain, if you've ever been in any kind of therapy and any kind of, you know, real deep conscious thought of things, you have to always go back to the root cause and how it made you feel. If you don't address how it made you feel, and you skip that part, it comes back sooner or later to haunt you. You have to accept it, you have to address it, let it know how it made you feel, and then you could kind of work on the solution. But you can't skip that step. So be kindful, be mindful, and just understand that there's no perfection. Like the perfectionists that I deal with, God bless them, I love them, but progress is better than perfection. And emotional and stress eating is something that it's at the top of the list because you're aware of it. But if you beat yourself up about it, if you just give yourself this really high bar and you're not meeting it, you're only making it worse. You're only creating more stress, and then again, you don't reach that goal, or you don't change, and it's this vicious cycle. So to my perfect people out there, I love you, but nobody's perfect. Let's take a deep breath, especially during this time, to be kind to ourselves, to be mindful, and understand that it is an imperfect process. So acceptance is definitely self-conscious, and acceptance, and everything that I just threw in there is really one of the major ways to help deal with this. And that's, I say this because it's very different than creating habits, which is what I teach. This is very fragile, stuff, and you have to treat it that way. You can't, guys especially just want to fix things. We're really good at avoiding that emotion, and that feeling, and going right to the cure. But if guys, it goes both for both men and women. If you don't deal with the reality of the situation here, it's going to come back and haunt you. And for women, it tends to be a little worse because women are, it's just a dynamic nature. It's not judgmental. It's not anything. Women are just wired differently. And so every kind of thing that you do is tied into an emotion. And so when you're high stressed and you tie it to an emotion, it just ups that level, 10 times. So I do see a lot of women in the practice, kind of expressing that they're dealing with the stress more than the men, but that doesn't mean that the men aren't feeling it. Okay, so take that for what it's worth. Um, Self compassion. One of the things it also says is resist the urge to compensate. So that's that excessive exercising. You don't want to, you know, oh my God, I ate all this food and now I got to work out for an hour. And then, because again, you create this vicious cycle. So we're back to acceptance. We're back to imperfection. And now I'm going to give you a couple of, real coping skills. And before I do, as a health coach, I work in the art of the possible, right? Like my job with patients is to show them that there's other possible outcomes that they may not have considered before. So in order for any of these things that I'm about to say to help you, it has to, in your mind, become a real possibility. So I'm asking you to open up to the possibilities of other options besides turning to food, um, because it is normal, it is part of coping. But if it's your only coping mechanism, you're gonna spiral down, a very difficult hole to get out of. So, what are some of the other things you could do? Well, normal exercise, steady exercise, a routine of exercise is super duper beneficial and helpful. Um, Exercise reduces stress, it releases toxins, it increases endorphins, feel good mood enhancers in your brain. So there's a lot of physical benefits to the exercise that are going to help you cope again with the emotion, cope with the anxiety. This one is one everybody loves. Take a bath. It's funny because our my bathroom doesn't have a bath. It only has a shower, and it's pretty common nowadays to pretty much only take showers. I think I I mean that's pretty much all I do. I don't remember the last time I took a bath. It's been a while, and I definitely know when I take a bath and I take the time for myself, a nice warm bath, it makes a ton of difference. You get out of that bath, the world is still the same, the COVID is still there, but you've released a great deal of anxiety, a great deal of just that tension. So that's another great coping skill. Um, you know, what I'm doing right now is part this number three is giving yourself a pep talk. I'm kind of giving you a pep talk here. I'm telling you that there's other possibilities. I'm telling you that it's okay to use food as a coping mechanism during this time. But you also need to do it for yourself, right? You're the only one that's there for yourself 24 hours a day. That's why I always teach accountability needs to transfer from an external source to an internal source. You have to be accountable for your mood. You have to be accountable for your attitude and your expression and your choice. Instead of poor me, it's hey, it's a tough time right now. So giving yourself a pep talk is very important. But more than that, I think it's a habit of positivity and a habit of gratitude. We can all look at the same situation and say, man, this is the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. Or we could say, man, I'm reaching more people right now than I ever did in my life. For example, in my health coaching. So it's like the half glass, half empty, half full. It really is. It's your perspective is your world. It's your life. It's your reality. So giving yourself your pep talk and making it a habit is positive reinforcement. It's a very great tool. Which leads to the next one, which is meditation. Which, if you take my course or you've heard me speak at all, you know that I do qigong, and I think meditation is probably the best thing I ever did because I never did it before. So meditation was something I used to kind of make fun of. Meditation was something that I thought was for hokey pokey people, whatever you want to call it, for yogis. And man, was I wrong, and I apologize, and I wish I would have started that much sooner in my life. So if you're not meditating, doing yoga, again, I do qigong. Start today. Just go to YouTube, just Google it. I can give you some resources if you want to reach out to me, John at UpLevel Living, and I'd be happy to do that. Probably of all of these, at the top of the list. Work on managing time. Excuse me. So, whenever today was a great example. I came home. Today's Taco Tuesday. I make the kids. I really do. I make them cook. They were not prepared. I have one kid running to the supermarket. I have the other kid, chopping up the chicken, and we ate at almost 8 o'clock. And I could feel the stress. They're 16, 17 years old. They're not usually stress kind of age kind of people, and because their time management was not there, you know, it was a mess. It was stressful. I stepped back. I let it happen. But the same thing happens in your life because you're working from home, because the kids aren't going to school, because of all these reasons. Your time management is a mess. Maybe, right? I'm just saying, if it is, look at that and make it. Try to get back to a routine. Try to create a routine as much as possible. It's going to reduce stress. It's going to help you manage this anxiety. It's going to help you with the emotional eating. um, Asking for support. I was there, before I was a health coach, and I reached out and I got help. And, obviously I'm a health coach and I see a lot of people, and every day, we're helping. And, a lot of people tell me, man, I wish I would have known about a health coach before. I wish I would have known about, something like this before, resources. So, if you're really obviously in another level where it's consuming your life, it's obsessing you, definitely ask for support. There's two left. Establish healthy boundaries. That's easier said than done, especially again during high stress, high times. But write it down. Establishing healthy boundaries, and and really it's about recognizing a trigger that could make you turn to a bad decision. So that's when you set the boundary. I'm not going to allow myself to eat after 8 o'clock, because you know that you really are going to have all sweets and binge desserts after that time. So certain boundaries and certain just boundaries, because restriction is not really the word. It's just functioning positively within certain limits, and that's perfectly fine. I mean, you know you live a life off the edge, and eventually you're gonna fall off, right? So creating healthy boundaries is another great one. And then the last one is creating a to-do list. A lot of times we go to bed worried about the next day. um, we're just overthinking, and so our mind is going 100 miles an hour. And so the practice of creating a to-do list, especially before going to bed, is very positive, and very effective to kind of shut that door, and help you shut your mind down. Because here it is, I'm going to do this tomorrow, I'm going to do that tomorrow. Oh man, I didn't do this today, I'm going to carry it over for tomorrow. Close the book. This is something that men are better at than women, and it's just again our makeup and our function, the way we're made up. But closing the book on today after you write it down, tomorrow's another day, is something hopefully you could start practicing and you could start doing. So again, the key takeaways for today was, um, you know people are going to turn to food during this overwhelming stress time. It's perfectly normal. And emotional eating is not problematic. It's not a problematic coping strategy unless it's the only thing you're doing. If you're not doing those other things that we just spoke about and you're only turning to food, then it is going to be a problem. If you previously recovered, from some kind of eating disorder, a relapse is common during this time. Don't beat yourself up. Again, being, self-conscious and just, compassionate, acceptance, those kind of things. Not tough love. There's not the time for tough love. And then it's important to expand your coping mechanisms, like we just spoke about. And I gave you 8 good ones. So if you like what you heard and you want to get the download, just email me, John at UpLevel Living. I'll be happy to send that to you. Does anyone, Rochelle or anyone, have a question before we wrap up? I'll stay on for a minute. There's always a delay, and I know that, I could just tell by the feed that there was a little bit of a delay tonight. I apologize. All right, I guess we're going to wrap it up. Again, I thank you so much for your time and for being here tonight. And we're going to keep on discussing other diet challenges in these Transformation Tuesdays. And one that we're working on is kind of dealing with, and I would say even overcoming, obesity. Obesity has just become to the point where 50% of our population, almost 50%, can be categorized as obese. So obese doesn't mean you're this giant, and excuse the term, but this giant fat person. You know, obesity can happen with just being a little bit overweight. You know, it's your BMI, your body mass index, to your height, to your weight. And so we're going to explain that. And people that may be dealing with obesity, we're going to help you. So Piper, thank you. Rochelle, thank you. Guys, have a great night. Have an awesome Transformation Tuesday on purpose. God bless. Good night.